Hey y'all, welcome back to the Free Black Women's Library YouTube channel. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. Thank you for liking this video and thank you for subscribing to my channel. Please subscribe to my channel. What's up, y'all? My name is Ola. I am an artist, cultural worker, and the creator and director of a social art project called the Free Black Women's Library. And on this channel, I talk about books, movies, and TV shows. And today I'm talking about a film. I'm talking about a film, and I'm really excited to talk to y'all about it. And I'm so curious to know if you have seen this one and to know your thoughts. Let's get into it. The name of the film is Hedda. Hedda is currently streaming on Thou Shall Not Be Named Prime. And Hedda stars Tessa Thompson, Tom Bateman, Nina Haas, and it is directed by Nia DaCosta. Period. Okay, so it turns out that Hedda the film is based on Hedda the play. Hedda Gabler, the play, actually. Hedda Gabler is a play that came out in the 1800s that is written by Henrik Ibsen. Hedda Gabler is canon. It's one of those plays that if you're someone who's a playwright or if you're someone who studies classic literature, you might have come across it at some point in your studies. Yeah. I, unbeknownst to me, this play is canon. This play is a really big deal. This play has been adapted multiple times. Hedda Gabler has been a source of inspiration for many books, TV shows, characters, uh, ballet. There's a ballet that I discovered when I went on my deep dive. There's actually a ballet that is based on Hedda Gabler, the play. So it has been used over and over again as source material to tell the story of this unhinged woman, this manipulative um, woman who some might say is a victim of the patriarchy, and some might say that her behavior is a way to resist the patriarchy, right? There's this concept of feminism as deviance, right? Feminism as bad behavior that is explored in other films, other books, plays, and so on. So there's that. Yeah, I've seen a couple of people describe this film as a feminist film. I wouldn't go that far, but I will say that I really enjoyed this film. Those of you who know me, you know that I love an aesthetic, right? And this film is so visually beautiful. The set design and the costume. Let me tell you something. If I see a film, if the storyline is weak, but it's beautiful, I will tell you that it's a good film because that's how superficial I am. But thankfully, in this case, the storyline is not weak here. So let me just clear that up real quick. The storyline is fierce, right? As we said, it's canon. But what Nia DaCosta does is she takes the original screenplay and she expands it and makes it more fascinating, more messy, more curious by gender swapping characters and racializing characters. She gives us this world that Ibsen has created. She takes it, she shakes it up, she stretches it out, and she brings it into 2025 in a way that I really, really enjoyed. And I will say this, I will admit this, because I'm not an Henrik Ibsen reader, um, I had no knowledge of the Hedda Gabler play. I watched this film specifically because I wanted to see the work of Nia DaCosta and wanted to see Tessa Thompson on my screen. I was sat for Nia and I was sat for Tessa, right? Nia DaCosta, this is her sixth film, her first film, Little Woods, which also stars Tessa Thompson. Nia DaCosta, who made Candyman, which I did not see because I'm scared of seeing horror, but I heard it was really well done. Nia DaCosta, who made The Marvel. So Baby Girl has been busy, and Tessa, who I adored as Valkyrie in the Thor movies, and who I also enjoyed in Passing with Ruth Negga, which I believe is on Netflix. Yeah, directed by Rebecca Hall. So I was sat for Nia and I was sat for Tessa, right? But I was blown away by Hedda. Blown away by the character of Hedda. Ooh, my eyes itching, y'all. Excuse me. Excuse me. Blown away by the character of Hedda. Completely. What a fascinating woman. What a fascinating character to be written. Um, I can imagine the fervor and the response to Henrik Ibsen in the 1800s when this play first premiered. And just as I can imagine the way people are responding to the Hedda film now, it's a sense of, what did I just watch? What's going on? Um, yeah, very deep, very deep. So as I said, we have Hedda Gabler the play and we have Hedda Gabler the movie, and there are some very distinct differences between the movie and the play. We have the main character who is half black, black mom, white father who is General Gabler, Tessa Thompson's character. So that's different from the play. We also have Judge Brack, who becomes a racialized character in the movie. He's a black man in the movie. In the play, of course, the entire cast is white in Ibsen's. This is the 1800s in Oslo, right? So, of course. But now in 2025, we have the black judge character, and we also have a gender switch of the Loveborg character. The Loveborg character, who is Hedda's ex lover, is a woman. So there's this sapphic thread that is just put in the middle of the piece. You know, like let's say you're weaving, and you're working with very specific colors, and all of a sudden you decide, I'm gonna add this bright red pink, right? That's what happens. We switch out these races and we switch out these genders. So Hedda now becomes a queer biracial woman. Next level. It changes the story completely. Yeah. This story also takes place in 1950s England. So we have a time jump difference. We have a huge time difference. 1950s England, and we also have it taking place all in one location, which is true to the play, which all takes place in Hedda's home. But in this case, that big party where the major mess happens in the play also takes place in Hedda's home. So as you can see, there's multiple differences, there's multiple changes, and sometimes when you have your core story that everybody knows and is familiar with, you change it and it takes away from the themes that are being explored. But in this case, it doesn't. It adds to it. It's like adding hot sauce to your sub sandwich. I don't know. It's just wonderful. I enjoyed it so much. I enjoyed Nia DaCosta's interpretation of this character. I enjoyed this world that Nia put us in, where Hedda was in charge. Yeah, because in the play, it doesn't often feel like Hedda's in charge. It feels like Hedda is attempting to seize control and maintain control, but she ends up losing it. In the film, Hedda is in control from the very beginning. And every time we think that she might be losing control, she snatches it right back up and she stays in control the whole time up until the very end. We love that. We love that. So another thing I really loved about the movie is that it was broken up into five parts. The play is 4 acts. The movie is 5 chapters. And I think that those vignettes really offered us another example of working with the source material that is a play. It gave us that play vibe. I really appreciate when stories are told in parts. As someone who's ADD, ADHD, I feel like it makes it much easier to follow when movies do that. But let me know what y'all think. So I talked about the costumes, I talked about the set design. The sound design was also very interesting. I like the way music was used. There was this situation where every time um, Hedda would have a moment that sent her off course, there would be like some these breathy sighs, this sucking in of breath. So they played a lot with Hedda's breath as far as the sound, and they also played some classics. Oh So Quiet, shout out to Bjork. I love that song. Was used pretty heavily. And yeah, I'm going to talk about each act, and I'm going to try not to go scene by scene because that would just take like probably an hour to do. And who wants to listen to me ramble about a film for an hour? Not anyone, I'm sure. But those who are here with me, this is the point where I should say that this video will contain spoilers. So if you haven't seen Hedda yet and you hate spoilers, turn it off now and then come back after you've watched the movie. So in the beginning of the film, we see that Hedda is centered right in the middle of the frame, and there's one detective on either side. We see their backs, we don't see their faces. We see their backs, we hear their voices. Beautiful visual cue to let us know that Hedda is the center of this story, and these men who are talking to her, they're inconsequential. They don't even matter, right? But they're here because there's been a situation, um, and they want to know what is it that happened last night? How did the bloody mess, what happened? And Hedda says, well, there was a party, and where should I start? And they say, start from the beginning. So now we know that Hedda is the person who is narrating this story for the police. Can we count on Hedda to be a trustworthy narrator? Can we count on Hedda to tell us the truth about what happened? We shall see. It starts out where she's coming out of the lake and she's got these rocks in her pocket as somebody's calling her name. Hedda, Hedda, Eileen Loveborg is on the phone. Whoa, automatic excitement. Runs to grab the phone, has this quick, very brisk conversation with Eileen Loveberg, and it's automatically known that they have history with each other, right? They have history. Hedda invites her to the big fancy party that she's throwing that night in the mansion, and Eileen says she will be there. Hedda goes to say something else, and Eileen hangs up the phone. What's going on here? Interesting. It's a beautiful shot behind this really wonderful glass frame. And Hedda hangs up the phone. She goes to take a bath. Next time we see her, she is in this sexy red dress, hair's out, and she's walking around the grand mansion. She's walking around the mansion, she's giving direction, she's bossing, she's in her power. She's stomping, she's doing her power walk in her red dress, and she's saying no flowers. She's ripping the tablecloth off the dining room table. So once again, we're learning a little bit more about Hedda in that this party that she's having, she does not want to give off a sense of softness. She does not want it to look like she's turning this house into a home. She has no interest in softness, in domesticity, in making things pretty, right? It's it's a big marble table. It has cold, hard edges, right? So she's got her red dress on and she's saying, no flowers, no flowers, no flowers, ripping the table. So we see that Hedda is she has a very bossy, kind of commanding presence, right, amongst the family. amongst her servants, as far as how she treats them, how she talks to them, doesn't even look them in the eye. No, she says to one guy outside by the field, just no, right? So she's somewhat rude, but she looks amazing in this red dress. And then we see her again, centered right in the frame with the red dress on, hair blowing in the wind, and she's got a gun in her hand and she's shooting the gun at the sky. Okay, so now we know Hedda likes to play with guns. This is a nod to the Hedda Gabler character in the play, who also liked to play with guns. So they were accurate in that regard. So yes, we talk about no flowers, no fabrics, and we have a little bit of foreshadowing here because we see that at this one point, Hedda walks through the room with the chandelier. And as she's walking through, the guy who's hanging the chandelier kind of shifts it a little bit and it shakes as she walks through. And he says, "Sorry, ma'am." So it's a little bit of foreshadowing there. And then, boom, title card, chapter 1. Now, there are no subheadings for these chapters, but I gave each one a subheading. And the first subheading in this story, we see now that Hedda is no longer wearing that body-fitting red dress. Now she's wearing this dress that looks like it could be gray. It looks like it could be green. It's hard to tell what's going on. It looks gray. And we see that Hedda is acting like the dutiful wife, helping her husband, her new husband, tie his tie. Now we meet George Tessman. George Tessman is her husband. He's a professor. He's an academic. He's a scholar. And he is fretting, right? He's nervous about this party because Professor Greenwood is coming, and Professor Greenwood is the person who will decide whether George can get this job. George needs this job to pay for this big old fancy house that he bought for for Hedda, right? He bought this house so that him and Hedda could live in it and have a family. And this is not a house. This is a mansion. This place is huge. I really love the way the set is used. And I really love the fact that throughout this entire film, we are stuck in this place with these people. And also that the entire film takes place in the span of 24 hours. So it's a quick, rapid story. Things happen quickly, but also slowly. It's very interesting. The pacing of it is done really well because there's so much that happens and it's shoved into one night. And it's akin to any type of story that takes place quickly. So anyway, speaking of quickly, let me keep going. So chapter 1, Hedda is now in her great dress. She's getting George ready. They talk about Professor Greenwood coming. And then we see creepy ass Brock. Now, Brock is a character that is true to the first story. And he is very lecherous right away to me. I'm bothered by Brock. And then we have Professor Greenwood with his young wife. Professor Greenwood is an elder, and his wife looks like she's in her 20s, right? She makes this comment about Hedda looking dusky, rude. Uh, but Hedda hears her, and you know that she's going to do something to get back at her later because nobody gets away with being rude to Hedda. Now, I didn't know anything about Hedda's character because I wasn't familiar with the Hedda Gabler story. But for those who are familiar with the Hedda Gabler story, I'm very curious to know from y'all, what did you think about the way her character was changed for this story? What do you think it added to her? I think it did, but I'm biased because I enjoyed this film and I don't have those preconceived seeds in my brain around who Hedda is. But in this story, Hedda is manipulative, she's cruel, she's controlling, she's mean, she's performative. She never answers a question with a straight answer. Even when George says, "Are you happy?" She says, "Don't I look happy?" Right? When she's smiling, she looks very cunning. She always looks like she's up to something. She's very devilish. She's a little bit of a troublemaker, a chaos agent, right? And the Hedda in the first story in the play, it was she was doing these things because she was bored. She was doing these things as a way to rebel, right? There's this concept of deviance as a feminist praxis, like being disrespectable, being rude, being out of order, being mean, being the villain on purpose, right? But Hedda is she a villain or is she an anti-hero? We see that she is referred to as a bastard on multiple occasions, and we see that her father was a man of note, but there's no conversation about her mom and who her mother is, if they had any type of relationship. So her father raised her to be proud, but where is Mama Gabler? Was there a Mrs. Gabler? Who knows? The fact that her dad was a white man, and this was probably like the early 1900s. Yeah. Yeah. So there's all this history there. We could dive into it, but we don't need to. Either way, we have this new character that shows up named Thea. Thea is not gender swapped or race swapped in the movie. She is a woman who has been working with Loveborg and helping him write his book. In the movie, she's been working with Loveborg and helping her, and they have developed a bit of a close relationship. It's become romantic. That is implied in the play, but it's not shown in the same way it's shown in the movie, where they kiss and they profess their love for each other. And, you know, Hedda is jealous. Hedda is angry about this, and she wants to destroy whatever it is that's going on between them. She wants to destroy it because it's like, if I can't have her, no one can type vibes. So once again, something is going on with Hedda, and I'm not going to try to diagnose her, but I have seen people call her a sociopath, and I understand why they would. I wouldn't personally say that, but she is so mad. Would a sociopath be jealous? I don't know. Um, but she is so mad about the fact that these two have gotten together and they've got this love for each other, but she's never going to say it. She's going to look at them and she's going to say, what a pretty picture. And in her mind, I think Tessa Thompson did a good job of showing us that Hedda's smile is not a smile that is pure. It's a smile that is cunning, and it's a smile that is right. It's that type of smile. So it turns out that Thea overtalks and lets Hedda know that she's nervous about Eileen coming to a party because Eileen is no longer drinking, and she wants to make sure that she keeps her from drinking because it's drinking that causes her to act out and crash out. Hedda knows this because Hedda and Eileen had an affair, a tumultuous affair. They were really toxic and bad for each other. And one day Eileen got very drunk and broke up with Hedda, and Hedda pulled a gun on her and attempted to shoot her, but did not. So this is their breakup of their relationship. And I felt a little bit unsure around, I enjoyed the sapphic element and the queering element to the story, but I felt a little weird about how Eileen is significantly older than Hedda and significantly older than Thea. So it felt there was like a little predatory thing happening there with Eileen. So Eileen is not innocent either. And I think that's the thing that makes this play and this movie so enjoyable and so such a success, is that there are no good characters and there are no bad characters. Everybody's flawed. Everyone's a mess. Everyone's making mistakes and doing things reactionary, moving in a reactionary manner. Just yeah, Hedda calls herself her whimsical nature. Like, child, whimsy is supposed to be playful and fun. Whimsy is not plotting someone else's demise. Okay. So we see that once again, Hedda is in charge, Hedda is in control, Hedda is the master, and everyone else is her puppet because she changes Thea's clothes. Thea stands there while Hedda is dressing her and undressing her and dressing her and undressing her. And then she brings Thea downstairs and she makes the entire dinner table shift down so that she can put Thea right next to her at the table. And we see that Thea is talking about how, oh, Thea's Eileen's ex-lover is supposed to be here. And apparently the last time they saw each other, she threatened to kill her. Not knowing that the person she is talking to is the person she is talking about, right? And Hedda's just like, really? Is that so? Don't worry about the past. And girl, you need to relax. Like she's just minimizing and dismissing all of Thea's little fears. And we see that Thea is looking at Hedda unsure because it turns out that Hedda was her bully in school. Hedda used to pull her hair. Hedda threatened to burn her hair. So she knows that Hedda is not a nice person, and even though Hedda is pretending like she's changed. So we move on, and it's after dinner, and George is there talking, and George is painfully boring. So we see that George is a dry, boring academic. We learned that they went away for their honeymoon for 6 months, and George spent the whole time at the library doing research on their honeymoon. Where was Hedda while you were at the library? George says, oh, she was eating out. And her friend's like, yeah, she likes to eat out. So there's a bit of camp, there's a bit of comedy, there's a bit of lie, there's a bit of moments where things are being said that are very spicy and very sexual, but it's like an inside joke between the viewer and the person who's telling the joke. I enjoyed that very much. And we see that Hedda's upstairs with the guns that her dad has left her, right? She's got the key for the gun case around her neck. Brack, he is attempting to kiss her upstairs, and she's like, no. She kind of pushes him away. So what's going on here? I was a little bit confused about that because he was kissing on her, but she wasn't outright like, get off me. She was just kind of like kissing him back and then pulling away, playing this game, which was a little weird. So it's like, what is going on? Right. And Brack is one of the people who refers to Hedda as a bastard. Also, Eileen refers to her as a bastard later on in the film. So that's how we know that. And we also know that her dad is the one who left her those guns, his prized possessions. We also know that her dad refers to her as his pretty little thing. So there's all these different seeds being planted that had me wondering, okay, is this why Hedda is the way she is? Is this the reason why she be acting up and being so mean to everybody? Because what is going on, Hedda? What is going on? Like, are you okay? Hedda, are you okay? Are you okay, Hedda? But yeah, so she pushes Brack away and she goes downstairs, and then we see George, and George is looking at her, and her lipstick is all smudged. Obviously, she's been up to something. And then after she comes down, a few minutes later, we see Brack comes down, and George looks at Brack, and then he looks at Hedda, and he wipes the smudge lipstick, and she says, oh, don't fuss. Once again, minimizing people's emotions, controlling the situation, because George is just kind of like, okay, like he lets it go. He doesn't confront her. He doesn't say, were you upstairs kissing Brack? Girl, I know you weren't just upstairs kissing Brack when we just got back from our honeymoon. What you think this is? I just bought this house for you. George doesn't do any of that. They go outside, they're looking at the firework, and he holds her hand. What? Okay, if you say so. So yeah, she says, don't fuss, and he doesn't fuss. The way Hedda controls people is diabolical. She's like a puppet master. I don't know what it is. I don't know if her being exceptionally beautiful is supposed to be the reason why people just do what she says, or if she just kind of has a fiery, as they say, fiery controlling personality that makes it work. Like, what do y'all think? What do y'all think about this? What do y'all think is the reason why Hedda is able to control people? Why Hedda drives people crazy in the way that she does? Oh my God. I'm so fascinated with this character. Let me tell y'all, I took a deep dive after watching this movie. I watched this movie. I went to Wikipedia. I read about the play. I read some essays about the play. I watched another film starring Ingrid Bergman. That's on YouTube. Hedda Gabler starring Ingrid Bergman is on YouTube. I watched that. And then I went back and watched the Hedda movie again with fresh eyes and familiarity with the story. Anywho, so moving on, Jane, her friend Jane, who I really enjoyed this character, she tells Hedda, like, this party is boring. I thought you said this was going to be a rager, liven things up a bit. So Hedda tells the band to play something a little bit more poppin'. Let's liven up this party. So they do Oh So Quiet, which is one of my favorite songs. Bjork's version is one of my favorites. This one also I absolutely loved. And we see how Hedda makes people dance. Once again, moving people around like chess pieces, being in control, partnering this person with that person, just pairing people up. Yeah. Getting people to dance. So then we see we have this moment where Hedda's dancing alone. And for the first time since we met her, it seems as if what she's doing is not a performance, but an intuitive, inherent way of being, right? She's being herself. She looks free for the first time. She looks comfortable for the first time. She looks like she's just in her own universe, enjoying living her best life. And then the music just stops. And Eileen shows up. Eileen Loveborg, played by Nina Hoss, shows up in this fluffy, busty white dress, looking gorgeous. Eileen shows up with her new book and a whole bunch of friends. So not only is Eileen crashing this party, but she's bringing friends with her and she's bringing her book with her, right? And it turns out that Eileen wants the job, the same job that George Tussman is going for. Eileen wants that job as well. And the person who's responsible for hiring that person is Greenwood, Professor Greenwood. Dr. Greenwood is who's there with his young wife. He's the person responsible for giving the fellowship and the professorship position. And Eileen wants it, right? But George doesn't just want it, George needs it. Eileen is an academic, a scholar who studies sexuality, and her first book was a hit. It's doing really well. This is her second book, which takes the topic of sexuality even deeper. Yeah. And she has only one copy of it, and she brought it with her to this party. Not very smart, if you ask me, but this is the 1950s, and I guess, I don't know. I just feel like, why are you walking around with the one copy of what you consider to be your greatest life's work? But I guess she wanted to show it to Greenwood. So there's that. So we see that they all go for a walk in the maze. And in the maze, we see the dynamic between Hedda and Eileen. The chemistry is definitely there. And Eileen is talking to Hedda at one point. They're standing really close to each other. And Eileen says, how could you throw yourself away? Right? Throwing herself away by getting married to George. That's what she means. How could you throw yourself away? And Hedda says, well, he loves me and he's going to give me everything I need. He's going to keep me happy. He wants to make me happy. And Eileen says, anything you need in life, you must build for yourself. Right? So now we get a little insight into Eileen's character. She's an out loud and proud lesbian. She's a professor, an academic, and a scholar, and she don't need no man. She's the type of woman who's like, we don't need them. You need to be doing shit on your own. So she says that, and Hedda's like, well, it's different for me because I'm also Black. Not only am I a woman and queer, but I'm also Black. So you could talk all that shit you want, but you're broke and you're a mess. So imagine what's waiting for me, because they're not even trying to let you in. You got to fight your way in. You think they're gonna let me in? So there's that. And Hedda really wants to read the book, but Eileen says no. And then we also find out that Hedda says, did you miss me? And Eileen says, like an appendix. So she's not saying the right things either. There's a couple of different moments where what she says to me is part of what sets Hedda off. Like when she tells Hedda she doesn't love her anymore, that she loves Thea, that Thea is kind, that Thea is courageous. You can see behind Tessa Thompson's eyes, oh yeah, okay, I'm gonna show you, bitch, right? So we find out that Hedda is an alcoholic and she is no longer drinking because she knows that when she drinks, she can't stop and she's an angry drunk, right? I used to be a bartender. You have your happy drunks, your sad drunks, your angry drunks, and your horny drunks. Eileen is an angry drunk. Yeah. So she has stopped drinking, and Thea is part of what has kept her on the straight and narrow. So she says, where's Thea? Hedda takes Eileen to Thea, who's waiting in the room upstairs. They hug, they kiss, they have this beautiful reconciling where Thea says, I left my husband. I'm going to be with you. I want to stay with you. I want to come with you. The book, she has a byline for the book, right? So, at this point, we see that Hedda is angry. Um, you know, there's another line that Eileen says to her where she says, you're the kind, there's a kind of like something that you wield. The kind of thing that intelligent women wield when they're catastrophically bored, right? Excuse me. So she knows that Hedda is dangerous. She's like, you pulled a gun on me when I left you. So they go in. So Thea and Eileen are in the room. Hedda's in the hallway, and she is so mad, but she pulls herself together. And then we have Act Two. The subheading for Act Two, for me, what I gave it is Hedda's plan. This is when her plan comes into motion. She's like, I need to figure out a way to get George established. So she texts to Brack and she's like, well, how about if I consider him to get him to consider becoming a politician? Like maybe he can get a cabinet in office. And Brack is like, nah, George would never do that. And George wouldn't be good at that. It's the professorship. That's what would be a good fit for him. And Hedda's like, but now that Eileen's here, it does no longer feels like a shoe-in. And Brack is like, yeah, that's true. She would be considered as well. So Hedda's freaking out. She tells her staff to make sure that Greenwood's glass is always filled because she wants him to be drunk, right? And then we see one of Eileen's friends talking to Hedda, and he's like, "What happened to you? I heard that you were like fire. Before you became domesticated, you were like fire." And Hedda's just looking at him like, you want to see fire? Hopefully, you won't get caught up in the ashes, right? So she wants Eileen to drink, and at first Eileen is holding on strong and she's not falling for the okey doke, right? She tries to get Eileen to drink the liquor. She's like, come on, come on. She puts it under her nose. And Eileen is like, no, thank you. I'm good. No, thank you. She says, oh, don't you see the way Greenwood looked at you with contempt because you got a soft drink, like a soft woman? And Hedda's like, Eileen's like, they always look at me with contempt. It's fine. And she keeps pushing, keeps pushing, keeps pushing, right? And Eileen's just like, no, I'm not drinking. So then Hedda says, so they're standing there together. It's Hedda, Eileen, and Tessa. And Hedda says to Thea. Hedda says to Thea, see, I told you she was gonna be okay. And Thea's like getting all nervous. And Eileen's like, what's that now? And Hedda's like, oh, Thea was so worried about you. She worried that you were gonna fall apart when you came here and you wouldn't be able to hold yourself together. She thought that you were gonna be a mess. She was so concerned. She came in here talking about how you're in such like this fragile, frail state, and she had to be here to protect you. And Eileen gets upset, right? So once again, we have Hedda manipulating another person. She manipulates George. It seems like she manipulates Brack. We'll get back to him. But now she manipulates the situation, and Eileen gets upset because now her ego, right? She knows just the right thing to say to get people triggered. So Eileen is triggered because she's like, oh, you were telling my business before I got here? What were you saying? Right? So Eileen grabs the cocktail glass, takes a drink. I love this scene. She's taking the drink. Hedda is on one side of her, smiling, that devilish, villainous smile. And Thea is on the other side of her, looking forlorn, afraid, stunned, saddened, just a mess. Like she's like, fuck. Because she knows that's it. It's the point of no return, right? When you're an alcoholic, you can't just have a teaspoon. You can't just have a drop, right? When Hedda's trying to talk her into drinking, she's like, oh, I thought you just said you were cutting down. You're not drinking at all? I feel like one of the most cruel things you can do is encourage somebody who is in recovery to take part in behavior that will ruin their recovery. So fucked up. So fucked up. So Eileen takes a drink, and that's the plan. All it took was to get Eileen to take that one drink. It's a wrap now, because Eileen goes hard. She's not a soft woman. She's not a soft drinker. She's drinking that bourbon. She's taking that whiskey to the head, back to back to back. Oof. And Thea is like, why are you like this? And Hedda says, oh, relax. It'll be fine. So they all go out to the water and they're all gonna go swimming. And Thea's standing by the fire, and Hedda is laughing at her in her face, and she's getting Eileen to laugh at her. Eileen is drunk at this point. She's getting Eileen to laugh at her, and they're chanting Thea, Thea, and they pick her up and they throw her in the water. So mean, so mean. And it just goes to show you when it comes to bullying dynamics, it takes one person to be the bully, but it also takes a community to create that container of bullying, right? Because somebody could have easily said, "Oh, leave her alone. She doesn't want to go in the water." Like, but they picked her up and threw her in the water, and we're like, "Yay!" So she gets out the water. She goes back in the house. Eileen is in the water. Um, Hedda comes out of the water. She takes Eileen's briefcase. She takes the manuscript and she hides it under a bush. Mm, mm, mm. And then we see that Greenwood is ready to go, right? Greenwood is also drunk because Hedda has made sure that the staff got him drunk. And he's like, "Where's my wife?" And Hedda's like, "Oh, she's in the maze," knowing full and well that Tabitha is in the maze with one of Eileen's friends getting busy because she had been manipulating the two of them all night, making sure that they were right up against each other all the time while drinking. So they're getting busy in the maze. Greenwood catches them, pulls out his gun, and decides that he's going to shoot this man that is having sex with his wife. Luckily, Greenwood is old AF and can't run, and David is young and agile. So he's running while he's getting dressed. He's running and he's putting his clothes on at the same time, running through the maze. This is the easiest maze to get in and out of, by the way. Runs up into the house, to the mansion, to the castle, to the grand estate. Runs into the building and pretends like he's in a conversation with Brack and George, asking one of them for a cigarette. And Greenwood comes in. Greenwood did not get a good look at the person that was having sex with his wife. It was dark. He's old. It's a maze. So it's not lit, right? So he has his gun out and he's like, "Who's been having sex with my wife?" Right? And George is like, just standing there looking. And the guy, David, is also standing there looking sheepish. And he says, "I'm going to shoot the man that's been having sex with my wife." And Hedda says, "You're going to run out of bullets." Hedda's sense of humor is very biting, right? He just looks at her and she says, "Come on now, relax. Is it really that bad? It's just a party, blah, blah, blah." So somehow she manages to calm him down, go up to him, and try to push the gun down and away from being directed at David. And unfortunately, the gun goes off, hits the chandelier that we saw being hung in that first scene, comes crashing down. I know that cost the set a pretty penny, and they could only shoot that one time because it looked real. It did not look like no AI, CGI, nothing. It looked like they used a real chandelier. Yeah. Really beautiful. So in that same situation, the gun ends up falling out of his hands, and we see this mysterious hand pick up the gun. It's Brack's hand because it's a black hand, and he's the only black character, dark skinned black character in the whole movie. So then, whew, moving on. Um, we're back in the room where Hedda and Eileen are in the room. Hedda has convinced Eileen to drink. She's drunk. And Hedda is so happy, right? That Eileen is now drunk. She's also hidden a book. And they're up in the room. And Eileen says, "Why did you make me drink?" And Hedda's like, "Oh, I did it for you." She makes it seem like she was doing it for her, like it was a favor. And Eileen's like, I need to leave. I need to find Thea and I need to get out of here. Right. And Hedda's like, no, no, no. You're fine. You're fine. Stay. You've played with the girls. Now you need to go and talk to the boys. You need to establish yourself as someone who's needs to be taken seriously. You are an icon in the making. Like she gets her so gassed up. And she says, you're ready, right? So Eileen's got her cape on. She takes the cape off of Eileen and she like brushes her eyes as if she's trying to help her look pretty. She brushes her eyes, she pats her hair, and she goes, there, you look perfect. Eileen walks towards the door and then she looks back at Hedda and she says, you're really not mad. Because in the same scene, it's when we find out that, Eileen says that she no longer loves Hedda. She loves Thea. And she also considers that their relationship was a mess. Their relationship was toxic. They could never be together. They didn't make each other whole. They didn't nurture each other's lives. They were problems for each other. Whereas Thea makes her life better. So Hedda's pissed. And because she's pissed, she sends Eileen down to the cigar room looking a hot mess. Looking a hot mess, y'all. She says, you look good. We see that white, fluffy, busty top that she had on is completely soaked from being in the water, and her nipples, her areolas, are completely on display like headlights. So Hedda sends her down there to be with the boys, to have this so-called academic, scholarly, deep, professional networking work conversation. So when people say, oh, this is a feminist take on the story, this is the part and the reason why I disagree with that stance, because we can say that Hedda's deviant behavior is could be a feminist take because she's rebelling against women's positioning in society. But the way she sets Eileen up, it's that's not feminist to me. That was fucked up. Oh my God. I was like, yo, really? And I kept wanting Eileen to just look in the mirror, like, girl, look in the mirror. Don't go down there. Look at yourself in the mirror. You look crazy. You look crazy. Like, we see all of your breasts. Mm-mm-mm. So Eileen goes down to the boys' room. She's the only woman in the room. And as soon as she walks in, George notices the situation and goes to say something, but Brack stops him. And she stands there by the fireplace and she's like, so what do y'all want to talk about? I'm like, hey, boys. And they're like, tell us about your book, right? So she starts talking about her book and how her book is like kind of about the future of sex. And then we see that Thea is standing outside the door and she sees Eileen and the door is closed. And Thea's standing there and she's like listening. And then behind her, we see Hedda. And Thea turns around and she's like, what is wrong with you? Why are you like this? And we're all Thea at this point. Or I should say, I'm Thea at this point. Because I'm like, girl, what is wrong with you? Why would you do this to somebody, another woman, right? We have these three women characters. We have Thea, we have Hedda, we have Eileen, three queer woman characters, and they're all suffering under patriarchy. They're all suffering under homophobia, anti-lesbianism. They're all sapphic. And of course, there's antagonism between them. There's combativeness. There's a sense of push-pull between them. But the way Hedda set Eileen up in this scene really bothered me. And I can understand why Thea was like, I hope you choke. And Hedda was like, great, thanks for that. No problem. So this scene, We move on to Act 3. So Act 2, I call Hedda's plan. Act 3, I call Hedda's revenge. Eileen and her exposed nipples on display, being drunk as fuck, making a complete fool of herself amongst the boys, um, to the point where they're not going to take anything she ever says seriously. There's this moment where people get slapped repeatedly. There's because Eileen realizes that she hasn't had her book in her hands for a long time. She's so drunk, right? She goes over to David, and he's holding the bag, but the manuscript is not inside the bag. So she slaps him, he slaps her, Jane gets slapped, George gets slapped. It's just a mess. But they start looking for the book. Ooh, child. And then we get Act 4, which I call Hedda's performance and pretending. Eileen is still looking for the book. This is when the whole thing about Hedda being a sociopath comes into play, because Eileen falls apart in front of Hedda and talks about how now she's just a woman. Her life's work is completely gone. What is she going to do? She has nothing. She's made a fool of herself at this party. And even if she wasn't going to get the job, at least she had her book. The one person who loved her, Thea, is gone. And it's just a mess. And Hedda is pleased, right? Hedda is pleased. She's witnessing this woman fall apart, and she is trying to suppress the cat that ate the canary smile, right? And she says, "What will you do?" And this is when Eileen talks about ending her life. So we have this long shot on Eileen, and then we hear Hedda say, "Eileen, I have something for you." And Hedda gives her the gun, that same gun from the morning that she used to shoot at the sky and shoot at Brack. She gives it to Eileen. Now, giving a suicidal person a gun is diabolical, twisted behavior, right? She gives her the gun. Eileen leaves with the gun. And then George finds her in the room burning the book. Why are you like this, Hedda? Why are you so cruel? Why are you so mean? Burning the book. At any point, she could have said, "Oh, Eileen, look, I found it." But no, she decides she's going to set that thing on fire. George comes in, finds her burning the book, and she pretends that she is doing it for him and for them. She pretends that she's pregnant. George gets happy. They start kissing. He says, "Do that thing with your mouth." She says, "No, you." And he goes down on her in the library, right? And we see Brack, and he comes and he listens at the door and discovers that they're getting busy. So he's annoyed by that because he wanted Hedda to himself, which is creepy, predatory, and weird. But we'll get to him later. So while George is going down on Hedda, she's watching the manuscript burn in the fire, and that's turning her on much more than whatever he's doing, it seems like. So it's morning, it's the next day, and Eileen is leaving, and David grabs her, like, "You need to apologize." And when he grabs her, they tussle, the gun goes off, and she ends up shooting herself in the belly. Act 5. Act 5 is what I call the aftermath. It's the light of day. Eileen is bleeding. They bring her into the house, and Hedda is staring, fascinated at Eileen bleeding on the floor. She doesn't look sad. She doesn't look shocked. She just looks curious, like, "Oh, wow, look what I did." Look where your whimsy brought you, honey. Look where your whimsy brought you. Thea says, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Call the ambulance. Call the ambulance." Hedda goes to call the ambulance. That same gun that was dropped, we see that same hand pick it up. And then we see we're back at 1. And Hedda is done with the police, right? She goes outside. She sees George and Thea. They're chatting because it turns out Thea still has her notes and they're going to try to save the book. In the light of day, all Hedda has wrought is nothing. She's in a messy mansion, havoc, and Brack is in the shadows being creepy. And he reads her like a book and tests her. You know, I have the gun that Eileen used to shoot herself, and I know that that's your father's gun, and I know that you gave it to her because you thought she was going to kill herself with it. And Hedda was like, yeah, that was pretty much the plan, but I thought she would do it in a more beautiful way. I thought she would do it more beautifully, right? In the play, Loveborg ends up dying by a gunshot to the bowels. But in the movie, yes, but either way, so both Heddas are disappointed, basically. The play Hedda and the movie Hedda are disappointed because they thought that Loveborg would have a romantic suicidal death. So we have this scene where Brack becomes very violent and very scary with Hedda. He says, oh, wait till the people find out, wait till I tell the police that the bastard daughter gave her ex-lesbian lover a gun to shoot herself. And Hedda's like, oh, and why would you do that? And he grabs her and he's like, I control you now, right? So his idea is that I'm not going to tell the police what you did, but that means I control you and I want you, right? So he starts like kissing her and like trying to take her clothes off because he's been wanting her and all this stuff. And I guess she's been toying with him. So ooh, this unsettled me. The way that this situation with Brack escalated really unsettled me. She pulls the gun out, another gun out, shoots it. It only has one bullet in it, and she misses. So then she runs out the stairs. He chases her, and he grabs her. He throws her on the ground, and he starts choking her. This part really freaked me out, and it's probably the scene that I could have really, I could have done without this scene. It looks like he's like trying to choke her, like he's trying to strangle her, like he's trying to kill her, right? And we hear George in the background saying, Hedda, Hedda, you know, and as he does that, Brack breaks out of whatever fever dream he's in and lets Hedda go and looks at his hands like, oh my God, I can't believe I was going to do that. Exactly. And leaves. And Hedda goes into the water, puts the rocks back in her pocket, and goes into the lake. And we have this beautiful shot. Once again, she's center and she's looking at us this time. And we hear, Hedda, Eileen's awake. Hedda, right? And she's looking at us, and then she just smiles. That same conniving, genuine smile. And that's it. Now, I loved this movie for multiple reasons. Some people say that the ending is ambiguous. I don't think so. I think Hedda's going to come back out of that water and take those rocks out of her pocket and continue to wreak havoc in the world of mice and men. I think that Hedda's a very fascinating, funny character. I enjoyed this introduction to her in this way, and I'm going to watch a couple of more adaptations. I enjoyed the sound that was the way sound was used in this film. I talked about the costumes and the set design. I loved it. It all takes place in the span of 24 hours. I loved it. It's a mixture of romance and horror and thriller and gothic contemporary drama, not contemporary, period piece type drama. Yeah, good job, Nia DaCosta. Good job, Tessa Thompson. Good job to the whole cast. Really enjoyed Hedda for multiple reasons, mainly for the visuals, but also for the story and the characters. So let me know what y'all think, and please feel free to leave me a comment and subscribe to my channel and join my Patreon. Thanks, y'all. Bye.